Hey there, this is Patrick with Dallas Hockey Hangout, coming to you after a 4-3 stars win over the St. Louis Blues. We'll start like we always do with how should we view this team, and that's as a blue killer. You know, in jazz and music, they have like the blue notes, which are the like notes in between the major notes, and I guess Dallas was, you know, really emphasizing the end notes. That was a bad metaphor, but I'm fascinated by the fact that they both have like negative connotations. So if you have the blues, you're not feeling well. If you're green with envy, you're not doing well. Pretty interesting that or if you're green, you're new. These colors and their default connotations. That's what I was ruminating on previous to starting this. Yeah, the Stars are uh, last minute juggernauts against these Blues. Obviously, the Blues are one of the worst teams in the league. It's really interesting. I saw this note earlier today, which is that the Wild are third in the NHL officially, and they have as many regulation wins as Winnipeg, who is 29th in the NHL. So, yeah, it's a pretty deep league right now, probably deeper than I can remember. It just feels like even the bad teams aren't that bad. And I mean, just look at how Dallas has played against St. Louis and Chicago, like these teams that are theoretically bad and like give Dallas all it can handle. So, it's not a great way the game panned out. Pretty interesting to hear. I think it was Boudreaux, which I will have a comment or two on how that presentation was, but Boudreaux had said Dallas hadn't lost after when leading after two, and it just that felt weird to say because they have lost a few times in overtime or shootout. Um, but that said, they were really close to another one there. Dallas doesn't traditionally give up leads like this. It's definitely two steps forward, one step back for Dallas right now because it seems like their game is going in the right direction and then a certain part of it falls apart. You know, it's 0-0 through the first, it's 3-0 after the second. You're feeling like Dallas is starting to, really show what type of team they actually have. And then all of a sudden you just get a pretty, I wouldn't call it a meltdown, but it was close. And had they lost that or it gone to overtime and who knows what happens there, like would have been a pretty sick feeling for the Stars. But yeah, I mean, look, if you listen to the players, they're angling for just getting to the Olympic break, as am I. I'm looking forward to that as well. But yeah, it seems like it's going to be such a long break that they have no choice but to kind of look at headed into the break as kind of like the pseudo finish line. It's pretty interesting how far we are into the season because, next thing we know, like it's going to be, hey, there's 10, 15 games left and we're looking at resting people because, largely it does seem as though it's just pretty much Dallas and Minnesota in the first round, like barring a complete meltdown by one of those teams to like fall out of the divisional spots in the Central. So I just don't really see that happening. But a lot of hockey left to be played. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. I'm not overly concerned on how Dallas gets their wins right now, considering how bad the stretch was previously, losing 10 of 12. So, look at it currently, they've won 3 of 4. And it does seem as though they're headed in the right direction as far as defense, offense, special teams. All of that was working for Dallas in this game. It's just, unfortunately, it's working until it isn't, right? Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm going to take a little bit different look on this game. I thought the goals were worth breaking down and talking about how crafty they were on some of them. So we'll just kind of do a little bit of more of a game recap than we might normally. But yeah, as far as how we're viewing this team, it's a team that's won 3 or 4 and is finding a way through a long season. And as it continues to shape up more and more, looking like it'll just be, stars in Minnesota, it's super fascinating to me that the idea that, because so currently Dallas is 69 points, a, a point back of Minnesota for second in the division. So if the playoffs were to start today, it would be Minnesota hosting Dallas, which I don't think Dallas is overly worried about if they're starting at home or not. I do think that they would want a game 7 at home. There's that to battle for. But, that said, the next closest team is the Mammoth with 60 points. So they've got essentially a 9-point lead. And while that does feel like a lot, the Mammoth, they're 8-1-1 in their last 10. And, it just takes one team having a streak like that and one team, not playing as well. That said, as much as, people have Colorado, it still is insane that they only have 6 regulation losses. That's pretty insane. As much as people say that they have it wrapped up, look, it's not like they're world beaters lately, 4-4-2 in their last 10. So they haven't played nearly as many games. So they've got 3 or 4 games in hand on Minnesota and Dallas. But that said, where is this team at? They're winning. I think it's really just figuring out what they need to do at the trade deadline. I think that's just where our heads should be at, which is, are we more concerned about the offense or the defense headed into the playoffs? I think that they probably want to see where Bischel's at before making any drastic changes, but I would expect them to make a change to, we'll call it a top 9 forward or a top 4 defenseman. I think it's going to be one of those two. Cap gymnastics are getting harder and harder. You have Sagan's cap hit. Not thankful, of course, at all for losing him, but they are thankful to have that money to spend. So be pretty interested to see where they spend that, if they kind of do sort of what they did last year, which was just kind of get CC, Granlund, and just kind of split the baby type thing. It'll also be interesting to see if they get a player and extend that player. So I will say, I was getting the feeling that Falk with the Blues might fit in with the Stars. His right shot, offensive, can skate. Feel like that would, help Dallas, but it's all about the cost right now. So pretty interesting time of year. Got a little ways to the trade deadline, but yeah, I would expect that'll be ramping up and we'll start seeing some trades here in the next couple weeks before Olympics. And while everyone's still healthy, I can imagine that would be motivating as well as, hey, let's trade them while they're healthy. That said, look at Marchment. They traded him early. Columbus gets him and he's got like 8 goals in 9 games, just popping off. I was still kind of holding out hope that maybe he wouldn't necessarily work out with Columbus and that Dallas might be able to get him on a flyer. I don't think that's going to work. I would imagine he's there for the rest of the season. So good to see him succeeding. But yeah, we'll just we'll launch into the goals. So that first goal by Duchesne was a thing of beauty. First off, that pass by Rantanen, he just lulls you to sleep. It kind of looks like he's just looking around and waiting for someone else to do something, when in reality he's lulling the defenders to sleep. His pass goes right through Tucker's legs, right to Duchesne, who's there for the one timer, and essentially, and those are the types of plays we really haven't seen from Dallas in the past, especially during their skid, but just that like high level play, the high level pass, a high level finish. We just quite haven't seen it, but it is starting to come around. That's obviously a good sign. But, after a 0-0 first period, the way these teams often play each other, it's low scoring, it's defensive minded. I was thinking that we were in for another 2-1 type game. So the fact that Dallas gets the first goal early in the second definitely bodes well. I need to do some research on that, maybe for next time, but on what Dallas's record is when scoring first or not, So yeah, scoring first hasn't always worked out for them recently. That Tampa game, they scored first and lost. And, I do like that doesn't seem to phase Dallas. It doesn't really matter. But that said, scoring first, they were couple minutes, shot slot late in the third away from potentially losing this in regulation. So we'll evaluate the how those goals went in here in a second and see if this was a meltdown by Dallas or more just circumstantial. So the second one by Duchesne, he's just whipping it towards the goal, whipping it towards Ben. But again, I don't feel like Dallas has done that as much lately. Just put it to where it needs to be. Put it to the front of the net. I mean, as evidenced by Harley's game winner, I mean, it's sort of a prayer, but it's just the idea of like, hey, where the puck's safer, closer to the net. I got the sense that Dallas has really changed its attitude towards some of its playmaking and being a little bit more, shoot first minded. I think, St. Louis came out looking to shoot in the third and that paid off for him. So I'm curious to see if that attitude continues. But yeah, and then, Rope's goal there on the power play. They get two power play goals in the period, which is just pretty deflating for what is a pretty poor Blues penalty kill. Um, you get Robo draws a defender, and obviously everyone knows what he can do, and he draws that blue defender out, and I don't at that point it's not even like a diamond anymore. It's rare plot point at the end of a graph, defender way away from things. I'm not sure what he's doing chasing him all the way out there, but that led to a pretty wide open pass to Hintz for the 1T. So I mean, look, Hintz seems to be one of the little more forgotten players for Dallas, at least from like a national perspective. And I think he can be taken for granted. His offensive skills can be taken for granted, especially because he's so fast and defensively responsible and has that Finnish DNA of, hey, they can do everything. It's that was only his 15th on the year, but I mean, we all know that Rope could put up 30 every year if he really wanted to. It's been kind of a slow year for him, but I do feel like that's just Dallas has so much talent and he's just been making the right plays this year. And, he's not executing like I think we expect Rope to be doing so. But that said, he had no doubt about that shot when he got it. He knew exactly where he was going for on the one timer. So, yeah, really impressive second period, but equally not as impressive third period. The first goal for the Blues I thought was really important in that they did a really good job of Dallas gets a clear, but then they're immediately able to re-rack. It's pretty impressive to see the players tag up and they're immediately in with speed. And they caught, Dallas changing and Harley comes off the boards and has a pretty poor angle at Fabry. And kind of like that had shades of like basketball to me in that, you are over committing to a player, and NBA players are so good about seeing that player's momentum, especially like Luka comes to mind, of seeing a player's momentum and using that against them. It seemed like Fabry did a really good job of seeing that Harley was coming too strong in that direction and, kind of crossed him up there and had enough shooting space to make him pay for it. So tough game for Harley, but obviously love to see him shooting the puck late. But yeah, the second goal, Snuggerud really kind of had as equally a good a pass as Robo did to Hintz on his goal, in that he, diced up Dallas's defense with a really good quick pass to Shen, who made no mistake on his shot, and then he gets another snipe shot on the next goal, which we'll talk about in a second. But Shen obviously can shoot the puck. So if you're going to let him shoot from in the slot like that, which was a concern, like Blues players got to the slot pretty easily. And, there was a note, I have it in front of me, just that the Stars were out hit 43-12. Yeah, there's been this narrative this year about 1% more from the Stars and they needed to be more physical. This was just one of those times where you're getting, you're up 3-2 and you're continuing to allow, or just across the board in the third, they let the Blues get to the slot way too easy. Obviously, Dallas isn't one to take power penalties, but I mean, I think we want to see more physicality from this team, and getting out hit 43-12 was, even if Dallas had the puck the majority of the game, it's not what you want to see. We know that's what the Blues are doing. They're playing defensive and, um, you know, being physical without the puck. So that's what they are going to do. But, it did seem as though Dallas let the Blues get to the scoring areas a little too easy. So that's what I hope to see better against Vegas on Thursday, which that'll be exciting. But yeah, the game time goal for Shen, it's interesting because first Harley turns it over, it finds its way back to him. He skates behind the net and is a little indecisive about what he wants to do. It seemed as though he had players on both sides, and instead he chose to. I got the sense he was like trying to go behind the ref's back. It seemed like he had kind of roofed it on the glass and was kind of, but yeah, but the way it panned out was he shot it directly off the ref's skate, goes right to Snuggerud, who finds Shen, and in the blink of an eye, he's got in the back of the net again. And I felt for Andre a little bit because those goals are just happening, so quick, and you're not counting for that to happen to go right to a Blues player in the slot. So some of that is bad luck. Some of it is poor defensive coverage. Would love to see Dallas clean that up. They're going to need to against Vegas, that's for sure. Yeah. And then, yeah, what are you going to say? It's 3-3. You're feeling terrible. Things aren't going your way if you're the Stars. And, they could have just said, hey, let's just get to overtime. Let's get the point. Excuse me. Could just say, let's get to overtime and get the point. Blues don't, they're not really in things. They'll give us the point, whatever. But it was good to see at least Dallas was still pressing, sort of. I will say, though, like with the several minutes left, Dallas gave up another slot shot to the Blues. And, I'm not going to read too much into it, but if you go back and watch Andre make that save and the way he kind of like looks and skates away, I don't know. I think there was a level of frustration of like, hey, why do we keep giving, me, Andre, the tough saves to make? Like, I felt like there was a little bit of frustration with the defense from Andre there. So yeah, it was really, they're all so close, but this is so stupid. But yeah, I played goalie in water polo when I was in high school. And, when you play goalie, it's a kind of a helpless feeling because, the scoreboard's only showing the goals. And when you give up a goal, it's pretty deflating and you kind of feel like you're letting the entire team down. I wonder how much of that was setting in there of like, hey, Andre's been playing. He had been playing really well up until that point, and then all of a sudden a couple, bad line change, some, miscommunication on defense, not the best IQ play to try and sneak it past a ref there. I got the sense that was frustration from him. So just chalk it up to, one of those games. Would hope that Dallas could, I would imagine that's what they'll be evaluating next time they get a big lead. Hey, how much can they lock it down and not let the other team in? So they're up 6-0 against Boston, and Boston gets a couple late. I think that is a bit of a trend right now. Dallas is getting up and, not keeping the foot on the gas pedal. So something I'll be evaluating moving forward. And then, yeah, the last goal, Harley's just doing what he should, which is keep the puck away from your net. He's in the zone there and gets the opportunity to shoot it, goes off the shaft of the stick and is, beating a pretty bewildered Bennington, which, I'll touch on Bennington in a second. I don't want to forget about him in the Olympics, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. If you didn't see these games and you heard Dallas scored with a minute left and then a minute 7 left to essentially win the game, you'd say, man, Dallas really has it. They know how to, score when it matters, score when the game is at its tightest. But if you'd watch those games, you'd say, geez, Dallas had an opportunity to, clamp this game down. And there's when they played on Saturday, or should say Friday, against the Blues, they get the 1-0 lead, but then immediately give it up and are trailing at one point. So I don't know. It's, against a team like St. Louis, you expect Dallas to have a bit more dominating game. I think that it's clear that Dallas is still finding its game. Thankfully, they've got 30 plus games to figure it out. So, shoot the puck. I just want to am super happy to see Dallas is sticking with that, at least in their recent run. It seems like they're making an active point to shoot the puck and not be trying for those like high level plays. And when the high level plays are happening, they're on the power play when there's a little bit more space. I wonder if, 5-on-5, how much Dallas is thinking more cycle, more grind, more shoot the puck and re-rack. So it'll be interesting to see how that strategy seems to change. And if they continue to play well and they're getting confident, yeah, maybe they start looking for those high level plays a little bit more. I think we've seen this team, especially with how much high level talent they have, they tend to go through phases of, yeah, they look for it a little too much. They're gripping the sticks a little too light. Everyone's wondering what's up with the offense. And then they break out again and then they're right back to where they are. It seems like that's where they're headed. So yeah, 3 stars of the game. We'll go with Duchesne, number 1, Shen, number 2, and then, Harley didn't have the greatest game, but he had the game winner. And I do think that's an important facet of choosing, our stars. I'm going to give Harley the 3rd star, even though, he had a pretty tough, he was even on the night. He had a goal and an assist. So up and down game, we'll give him the 3rd star. So did want to touch on Bennington. It's really interesting with him in the Four Nations tournament. Canada rode him to the championship. And if you look at his numbers and how he's playing with the Blues this year, it's not great. And it's really fascinating that you could look at him right there and still feel as though he's your guy. I bet we'll see another, I believe it's Logan Thompson. That's the other main guy with the roster. Let's look that up just so we're on the same page. But yeah, I am curious to see who else is going to be. Yeah, Thompson and Kemper, which the same sort of deal. Like Kemper's playing for a Kings team, which has just really not been there this year. His numbers are fine, but and then Thompson for the Caps, like last year's Thompson for the Caps was great, but he's not having as good of a season with the Caps, and neither are the Caps. Let's see, Thompson's numbers are. Yeah, actually, I'll walk it back a little bit. Save percentage of 912 is pretty good. This season is on par with his career 912 save percentage, which is pretty interesting. I think that we'll see Thompson get one of the early round games so that if Canada feels as though things aren't going well, who can they turn to? I feel like they would want to have an answer there. But, look, I'm spending all this time talking about Canadian goaltending situation. And, we have America, we got Andre, we got, do they give him the opportunity? Seemed like they gave him the chance against Sweden last year and the Four Nations, and we're happy going with Hellbuck. And I thought, you can go with either one. Hellbuck is up to play, then I would go that way just because this guy's one of the top 3 best goalies in the league. But he's been injured this year, and that has affected his play. So, yeah, so going to Bennington, it's like, man, I'm not sure how you can look at him and yeah, that's our guy for Team Canada. You've got all these great players on the team, and then you're picking, Bennington, who's not got the best numbers. He's 867 save percentage on the year, goals against average of almost 3.6. Like those are atrocious numbers, but obviously it's the team in front of him. I don't know. I don't think St. Louis is that bad of a defensive team that it would signify that his numbers are, not that great. Look, last year's save percentage of 900, 913 the year before, but the year before that, 894, 901. Like he's not got world beating numbers. So it'd be interesting to see if Canada rides with that. So yeah. And we'll just wrap it up here and talk about upcoming schedule for the Stars. Obviously you got a big tilt against Vegas coming up. Put your coffee pot on. It's going to be a late one. But yeah, Vegas is, man, for anyone that has not really been paying attention to how good Vegas is this year, up and down, but I still think they have a lot of the talent. And then like, uh, you know, you, they just get Rasmus Anderson. I'm really excited to see how he's fitting in there with them and if his impact will make a big difference for them. But that said, they are coming off two losses to the Canadians and a pretty bad one of the Senators, 7-1. So that would suggest that they're kind of in Dallas's spot and that they're not exactly crushing it right now. But that said, they've actually lost 4 of their last 5, which is not saying nothing. But then they had a 7-game win streak. Previous to that was a 5-game losing streak. So, look, it's a long season, much like I've said for the Stars. It's a long season. But that said, I mean, I do think that they're going to be right there at the end of the year. Uh, Eichel's having a crazy year, 61 points in 45 games. It's pretty good. They got several 20-goal scorers, Dorofeev, Hurdle, Stone. Eichel's just a goal off of that. Offense is not the problem for them. Defense seemingly is, which I can imagine that's why they traded for Rasmus. Yeah, big game, very big game. Dallas gets them at home late February. So I would imagine that there's going to be some bad blood. I tell you what, if Dallas is really considered, it's not funny, but it sort of is. You have to joke about it. Do you even play Miro in this game? Seriously, do you play Miro Heiskanen in this game, knowing that Mark Stone is just creeping around there, just looking for ACLs to tear? I mean, it's so tough. Like, I've been a journalist most of my life. It's incumbent upon me to call it like I see it when Dallas is not playing well, when they are playing well, all that. I tell you what, I can't hide my lack of respect for Mark Stone. He's the captain of the team. If you ask any, journalists from around the league, they would suggest that he doesn't have this reputation that Stars fans know him to have, which is a dirty player. Mark Stone is a dirty player, in my opinion. I don't have much respect for him. And, I would seriously consider not playing Miro in any of these games. I'm joking, but still, like, he's going to do something. You just know it. I know it. He's going to do something. Mark my words. Mark my Stone words. He will be doing something nefarious. So when that happens, I will flame him even more than I really feel about him. I've done interviews with NHL players, NHL coaches, lots of sports personalities. And, at the end of the day, I'm just covering the sport. But, if you put your journalist hat on and you've watched these matchups with Stone and the Stars, Stone is on one when he plays Dallas. He is seemingly walks the line. But when we inevitably see him do some other crazy stuff again, then maybe the league will finally notice. So hopefully it's not anything major. I hope it's just some dumb penalty he takes and Dallas makes him pay for it. But yeah, 2 more matchups with Vegas this season. At this point, if you're Dallas, just try and get out of that game healthy because Mark Stone is hunting for you. So we'll leave it at that. Stars beat the Blues 4-3. Have won 3 of 4. Seem to be heading in the right direction. So big game against Vegas coming up, them leading the Pacific Division, and should be a really, really exciting game on Thursday. So looking forward to speaking with you guys about it after that. You guys have any questions? At Patrick Hayslip on Twitter, DallasHockeyHangout@gmail.com. Send me any questions or comments. Really appreciate it. You guys have a good rest of your day. Talk to you guys Thursday, Friday.